rebates. The cut you offered is up to $825. The rebates were as high as $1,800 for a family in Alberta. I'm just wondering how you square that math.
I've said it before, and I will say it again. Stats don't care about your feelings. And wow, do we ever have a lot of epic fact checks coming up for you today. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, give us a follow. We are on Spotify as well. You can comment your thoughts down below and like the video. You know, the thing about elites and globalists is the fact that they are so wealthy, so out of touch that they become absolutely disillusioned. And when you're really wealthy, people treat you differently when they know, right? Because you could have something a lot to offer for them. So over time of being inside of that little echo chamber where, you know, you're the hotshot guy, you really do believe that you are the best thing in the world for everybody. And if everybody would just sit back and listen to you and leave you alone and let you do your thing, you know, everybody would benefit from it. They really, truly believe that. Unfortunately for the Liberals, though, yeah, we're a lot smarter than they are.
We will have to do things that we haven't imagined before at speeds we didn't think possible. And that means building millions of homes, building Canada into an energy superpower, building new trade corridors with reliable trading partners. It means the government spending less so Canada can invest more. It means making big polluters pay instead of hardworking Canadians, and creating one Canadian economy instead of 13.
Every single time Mark Carney speaks, it just fills my soul with so much hope and excitement that I could maybe actually achieve my childhood goal of learning how to surf. A weird goal, I know, because I do live in the flattest part of the country and I'm nowhere near any oceans. But, you know, that blue wave, it is coming. And it's coming as a result of Mark Carney continuing to open his mouth and show us exactly who he really is. I mean, I'm not a big fan of polls to begin with. The sample sizes are often quite low. They're from particular regions. Some of them are funded. It's just not my go-to source of information.
Where were the polls taken? Were they mostly done in certain 416 or 905 ridings where it's predominantly Liberal? So, like the old saying goes, the poll, you see what the poll is on election day. I'm leery. I heard the same thing about in the States. Look, when we heard with Trump and Biden, we heard the same thing about, oh, she's way ahead, and look what happened.
But nonetheless, take a look at this one here showing that it appears Mark Carney's surge of popularity, the peak, is coming down, baby. We are going down that mountain the longer that he is in front of cameras and Canadians get to see who he is. And the fact that he has no ideas, no plans, and he literally is only in government to continue pushing the things that enrich him and his family and continue to make them wealthier, aka carbon emissions, carbon taxes, carbon credits. He's talked an awful lot about those in the last couple of weeks. These things that, again, are so out of touch with what anybody else in the world wants, except for the people who are pushing them. We're going to fact check a lot of what he said in his press conference today, but I want to point you to this in particular because it's very entertaining. Mr. Carney is asked because him and Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney announced yesterday 1% income tax reduction in the lowest bracket. Poilievre announced today 15% income tax reduction on top of carbon tax being eliminated. Like, that's going to be a game changer for investment and everything.
He described income tax as the fine you need to pay for working hard. His tax cut is larger than yours. I'm wondering what you make of it, if you considered it a deeper cut than the one you offered yesterday.
I think so. Thanks for the question. It's a fundamental difference in our approach. We have a balanced approach. He has a simple approach. I recall that Mr. Poilievre, when COVID began, his solution was, let's have a tax cut. His response with the tariff war and the revenue that the government is collecting from the retaliatory tariffs, he said, I'm going to use that to cut taxes. We say we're going to use that to protect workers who are directly affected.
That's not entirely true, actually. What Mr. Poilievre said was that he was going to do retaliatory tariffs as well, which is something that garnered him quite a lot of backlash, but that in the money accrued from the retaliatory tariffs, not a penny of that was to go to the federal government, and that all of it would be going back to people affected, which was very reasonable, is it not? On top of then cutting taxes, which I have so much to say about this, but let's continue.
He said, and now he's backed it up with initiative, that he will eliminate, not just cut, eliminate childcare, eliminate dental care, eliminate pharmacare. He still doesn't have enough to pay. He's going to eliminate foreign aid while he's at it. He's eliminating the Housing Accelerator Fund, so he's eliminating affordable housing. And even with all that, he's getting this number. It's a everyone for themselves approach versus we're all in it together.
Gosh, that man is such a reptilian. Okay, so first and foremost, Pierre Poilievre has not once ever said he's cutting dental care. He's never said that he's cutting, what was the other one, pharmacare. Hasn't said that he's going to be cutting $10 a day childcare. Did say he was going to cut the Housing Accelerator Fund because it doesn't directly build new homes, and they're not even affordable homes. Most of them are actually market rate, or what is known as attainable, meaning you could maybe afford them at some point in the future. So Poilievre's strategy was to replace the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is $4 billion, if I'm not mistaken, with performance-based funding on municipalities and cities so that they can eliminate the red tape, speed up builds, all of that stuff. So yeah, he wants to erase the Housing Accelerator Fund because it's a bureaucratic waste of time and money. For Mark Carney to lie and say that Pierre Poilievre has pledged to eliminate housing funding or federal housing supports, that's not even remotely true. Pierre Poilievre is actually just proposing a far more efficient system where people are rewarded for doing a job and getting it done. I mean, he would have had a perfect opportunity to hash this out once and for all with Pierre Poilievre in the French debates, right? So earlier today, he was asked, because Pierre Poilievre said, I want to go one-on-one with you in the debates. Look at this pompous child and his reaction to it.
Le chef conservateur Pierre Poilievre vous met au défi de participer au face-à-face de TVA. Est-ce que vous allez le faire?
Pourquoi pas?
Pourquoi pas?
Oui, pourquoi pas? Oui, oui.
Oh, he just loves lying through his teeth and right to your face. Because that happened this morning, and just hours ago, Mark Carney has confirmed that he is actually going to be backing out of the French debates.
Increased spending on foreign aid that sometimes goes to dictators, terrorists, and multinational bureaucracies that don't help people on the ground. So giving Liberals a fourth term will only drive debt, taxes, and the cost of living higher. What we need is a new Conservative government that will put Canada first for a change. So I'll tell you what we are going to do. We will be cutting bureaucracy, cutting consultants, cutting back on handouts to insiders, and we will cut back on foreign aid to bring our money home to this country. We will also, and those will be spelled out in our platform with numbers to show how we will reduce the cost of government so that we can leave more money in the pockets of the hardworking Canadians behind me.
Here's a perfect example. So since 2021, Canada has provided approximately $351 million in international assistance to Afghanistan. What happened in 2021? It was taken over by the Taliban, right? And what happened, because here's the thing, $243 million was allocated to them to address humanitarian needs and things like that. Then there was another $108 million allocated to them to support basic services in health and education with a focus on women and girls' rights and empowerment. I'm not going to get into it, but feel free to just take a look-see at what has happened to women and girls' rights and empowerment. We have absolutely no idea in terms of the effectiveness, what they're using this money for, the oversight as well when it comes to money being delivered under the current regime. We actually have no insurance whatsoever that the money actually reaches the people it is intended to reach. So again, I will ask you, just go take a little Google search and see what's going on over there in Afghanistan when it comes to the rights of women and girls. And you can make your own judgment on where you think that money went. I don't know about you, but I just think it's really weird for our government to give hundreds of millions, billions of dollars over the years to regions and governments in the world who don't stand for our values at all and who hate us.
By the way, not something that Pierre Poilievre ever mentioned when he said axe the tax for 3 years. Never mentioned the rebate, didn't acknowledge the rebate, doesn't care about that affordability. Sorry, sir.
It really is something to see Liberal supporters and the media touting Mark Carney as though he is this global finance expert when he doesn't even understand the basic concepts of an economy. You're trying to smear Pierre Poilievre because he never mentioned the carbon tax rebate, of which, in fact, most Canadians spent more than they got back. That is proven no matter how many times the Liberals want to say that it's the other way around. Stats don't care about your feelings. And the simple fact here is that, I don't know. It's weird because if you get rid of the carbon tax, people don't need a rebate. Yeah, I know that's a wild concept, right? When you're spending more money on the carbon tax, you don't need a rebate. So if you get rid of all of it, the cost of living and your taxes and how much you spend, trying to dumb this down a lot for you, would decrease. That actually goes without saying for most of us who have the luxury of more than half a brain cell. And listen to Mark Carney getting caught with a gotcha about this very thing.
The cut you offered is up to $825. The rebates were as high as $1,800 for a family in Alberta. I'm just wondering how you square that math.
We do square the math. We have squared the math. A couple of things. One is you look at where the rebate is today. You net the. I'm going to look at the camera because you moved behind it, but I can't look you in the eye. But you square it with the carbon tax, so-called, that people are no longer paying because the rebate is obviously a gross amount. You have to net off the carbon tax that's being paid. So you have our tax cut today versus that rebate, and the net of the carbon tax has gone away. Plus, we have added the rebate, an extra quarter of the rebate that goes directly to people without the carbon tax. So for a median income, a family of earning $50,000, they come out ahead.
So just to confirm, the average family allegedly made more money as a result of the rebate, to the point that it would be cruel, as he insinuated previously, to remove the rebate and the tax. But then now that you have removed the rebate and the tax, families also still come out ahead. Which one is it, my guy?
This country is in bad shape of 9 years with Liberal just disaster after disaster. And I'm a former Liberal. I'm a blue collar union guy, and I can tell you all Canada needs to do is just take a look at what just happened in Ontario with Doug Ford and how all the unions supported him. This country has been strangled. Okay, we got a boot on our neck by these Liberals. But so by changing the singer of the band, it isn't going to do anything. It's still the same band that's playing.
And so when you say the Liberals use the metaphor of boot on the neck, like give me an example of what that is.
Well, I mean, you won't be able to keep me on your show this long. I mean, just start with the carbon tax. And Carney says he scrapped it. Yeah, he scrapped the gas part, but he still leaves on the industrial part, and he refuses to take that off. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on, Ian, but it's just one thing after another, okay? The immigration they let in here drove wages down. I see truck driving jobs now for $20 and $25 an hour. I made that in 1990, okay? Because he flooded the market here with all these students who pretended they were students, but now they come into the job market and drove wages right down. I'm talking union wages down, too.
Shifting gears ever so slightly, Mark Carney was asked about Donald Trump, and we know from yesterday that Mark Carney said he's not going to speak to Donald Trump, but I'm starting to feel like it's actually Donald Trump who refuses to speak to Mark Carney, and he actually gets called out about this.
To put us in a strong position. See, this is a fundamental mistake that the Americans are making. They think they will weaken us They think that they can own us, quite frankly. That's what they think. We are going to get stronger. We are going to wait this out. They're going to come to the table, and we're going to negotiate a good deal for the Canadians. Thank you, Steve.
Sir, did you say that President Trump is waiting to talk to the Prime Minister of whoever wins this election?
Well, that's an interpretation, but I think it's a reasonable interpretation. I'm available for a call, but, you know, we're going to talk on our terms as a sovereign country, not as what he pretends we are, and on a comprehensive deal.
Imagine saying, we're going to wait this out. The weaker economy is going to wait this out. I wonder what that will turn into. However, you know, despite Mark Carney claiming and running on the fact that he is going to be the one to stand up to Donald Trump, they're going to do everything that they can to ensure that they have a great negotiation with him. Mark Carney also admits that Donald Trump, much like most Canadians, don't recognize him as prime minister. And so even though he ran on being able to deal with Trump, clearly he cannot. Color me surprised about another liberal lie.
I had a lot to say about Mark Carney and a lot about what he's done to cash in on this crisis, you've said. What evidence do you have that Mark Carney has done anything unethical to take advantage of this crisis?
Well, the fact that he headed up Brookfield, and Brookfield is a large corporate landlord in Canada that engaged in rent eviction. At a time when Canadians could not find affordable homes, he saw a way to make more profit for his company. And now I don't fault him for making profit for his company. I fault him for proposing that somehow the person that fed the housing crisis, that rent evicted people, that jacked up the price of homes that were affordable, that bought up affordable homes, then turned them into unaffordable places, that somehow that guy could be trusted to fix the housing crisis. He cannot be trusted. What he's going to do is what he's done his entire career, which is make more money for the super rich. And it's going to hurt you and your family. That's what people need to know.
Ruby Dalla actually posted something in terms of the leadership race of Mark Carney that I've thought about a lot. I actually remember having very similar thoughts like this after October 7th, when suddenly university campuses across the country, across the world, everybody had a kafaya, everybody had a flag. And I'm like, bro, this just happened yesterday. Amazon does not ship that fast globally. So Ruby writes, think about this. Days after the leadership race, Mark Carney announces an election. How is it that the planes, buses, and print material for a federal election campaign were prepared so quickly? It's becoming clearer every day that the establishment of the Liberal Party knew from day one that Mark Carney would be selected. That's why he had inside access to ministers. It's clear there was never a race. It was always a sham and rigged so that the elites could fundraise for the party from hard-working Canadians.
Why not just sell your Brookfield shares and get rid of your unexercised options to avoid having to recuse yourself?
A couple of things. Thanks for the question, Steve. I've more than complied with all the rules, and I've more than complied with all the rules in advance, well in advance, months and months in advance of the requirements that were set up and that currently operate. By the way, requirements that Mr. Poilievre voted for when he was part of Mr. Harper's government. That's the first thing. The second is that I have divested all my assets, with the exception of cash and personal real estate, house and a cottage, into the blind trust, as is the route. It's a blind trust. I can't, what that means for those who don't follow this, I have no control over it anymore. It's a blind trust. I have no control. I cannot divest anything from it. I can't change that. The trustee manages it accordingly. I have set up screens for Brookfield and a company called Stripe that I used to be on the board of. I've set those screens up already, well in advance. They'll be administered by the clerk of the Privy Council and the Chief of Staff. And as well, I have already filed months and months and months and months in advance with the ethics commissioner.
Now, the way that he frames all of this is very manipulative intentionally, and it's also very much a way to deflect from any scrutiny by saying, oh, I did it months and months and months before you were supposed to, making it seem as though, he made some amazing heroic move. He's beyond complying with everything. But in reality, this isn't a heroic ethical move. This is a political PR cleanup strategy ahead of jumping into a campaign. I mean, let's just think about this. He announced Liberal leadership in January. He won, 10 days ago now. And then he also called for a snap election April 28th. So he wants you to take his word for it on the blind trusts, on ethical violations, on his assets without any transparency, because realistically, we will not know publicly the information of any of these conflicts of interest or issues until after the election is over. But he's framing it as though he's been beyond compliant with everything required of him. And this, to me, is very much some elitist manipulation that is disguised as having accountability. While he may have screens so that he's not able to vote on things that could directly benefit any of these, it's very clear that the entire Liberal Party is in on it. And if you remember with the Green Slush Fund, as an example, you literally had ministers a part of it who, when it came time to vote for funding on certain things that they had a conflict of interest in, they would just get up and leave the room and everybody would vote to approve it. Then on the topic of his blind trust, he can say all he wants and people will believe it because they're stupid, that, oh, I don't know anything that's going on in there. That's not mine. I can't do anything with it. Yeah, that's true. He does know what will benefit him, though. And he has gotten as wealthy as he is by being somebody who unregistered and unofficially has lobbied governments. That's a lot of what Brookfield Asset Management has done. That's a lot of what, the Net Zero Alliance in Glasgow has done. That's a lot of what the UN Special Envoy for Climate Change has done. It is political lobbying. That's not technically registered. So Mark Carney, and the reptile that he is, has made an excellent con move in his books because he went from being somebody who benefited off of changing policies after becoming friends with people who were policymakers to now becoming a policymaker. And that should terrify you. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like the video. You can also comment your thoughts down below. We have a really good episode coming up for you tomorrow that is going to focus a lot more on debunking the claims about Pierre Poilievre, as well as foreign interference, free speech. It seems to be something a lot of people are talking about in the liberal elite groups these days. We've got to censor you because misinformation. And they got pretty brutally fact-checked on that by none other than a government committee. So I'm excited for you to see that.